One of the most common New Year's resolutions I hear from people is, I want to read more this year. And too often it's very easy to look up in February, March, and realize you've read 0 books this year. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly how you can make yourself a better reader and read more books this coming year. With just a few short tips, I think that I give you all the tools you need to read more consistently, and just build up sort of a backlog of books and accomplish more in this coming year. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So my first sort of tip or talking point when discussing how to read more books next year is the idea that motivation is unreliable. You're not going to necessarily be motivated to read books, but what is reliable is the power of habit. I know that's a book that I've talked about in another one of these videos, but I'm being serious here. It's very, very helpful, and it's a lot easier to build a habit than it is to motivate yourself to sit down and read every night. So instead of having to give yourself a pep talk, I want to read 20 books this year, I want to read 10 books, and having yourself disappointed when you're not anywhere near that number as the year progresses, what you need to do is work hard early on in the year to establish habits for yourself that you can rely upon in establishing some sort of reading habit for yourself. So my first big picture tip based upon that is be intentional with your time. One of the biggest reasons people don't read is because they feel like they don't have time for it. They don't feel that they have large uninterrupted periods of time throughout their day, throughout their week. And I totally understand that. Everyone feels that. Life happens, you have work, you have school, you're traveling, you're on the train, whatever it may be, whatever your week is like. What you need to do if you want to read more books is to be intentional with your time. And what that means is you don't need 2 hours of perfect silence to read. The perfect time is not going to present itself. But if you have 15 minutes in a waiting room, if you have some opportunity throughout your week where you're going to have 15, 20, 30 minutes to just sit there, maybe somebody else in the room is watching television, maybe you made your morning coffee and you just have a couple minutes to yourself, be intentional with that time. Bring a book. Have a Kindle, download something on your phone, a book that you can read, because those small chunks add up. And a lot of times you'll find yourself sitting down for maybe 15, 20 minutes and find yourself wrapped up into a story. And then all of a sudden you've finished a book before you even know it. 10 minutes a day over the course of a year is 60 hours. That's multiple books without changing your life basically at all. Treat reading like something you can do in short, repeatable sessions, and you'll see the power of accumulation, the power of that habit, allowing you to finish more books than you ever thought possible. My second tip for reading more next year is to be intentional with your opportunity. Now you'll notice that I'm using the word intention a lot and intentionality, and I think the reason there is that it's important to be intentional if you are trying to read more books. It's not just going to happen for you, especially if you're somebody who's getting into reading for the first time or you're somebody who hasn't ever read before. You have to make it happen. So I said before, be intentional with your time. Our second tip here is be intentional with your opportunity, and this is a big one because you need to audit your day. When are you scrolling on your phone? If you're in a waiting room or you're just spending time doom scrolling, waiting in line, at lunch, on your commute, when are you not taking advantage of your opportunities to read more? Every opportunity where you're kind of sitting there doom scrolling and just kind of killing time is an opportunity for you to get a couple of minutes of reading in. So you need to maximize those opportunities by putting yourself in a position to read. And building upon what I just said before, download the Kindle app on your phone, bring a physical book on your commute, keep a book in your bag at lunch, read during lunch instead of doom scrolling. If you're going to a doctor's office or somewhere where you may have to be in a waiting room for a period of time, bring a book. If you have a train commute, bring a book on your train commute. Put yourself in a position that you have the opportunity to read and make the most of that time. You'll be amazed at how much better you feel when you realize, I actually read quite a few pages just while I was in the waiting room the other day, and I'm really moving through this book. And not every book obviously is going to click for you, but as long as you're being intentional, you will be very impressed with how much more you're reading over the course of a day, a week, a month, and even a year. And as I said before, as long as you are intentional with your time and your opportunity, you're going to be seeing incremental sort of improvements, and you're going to be seeing the power of habit taking hold as you start to read more and more books over the course of it. Now, our third tip here is to gamify your reading. If you're the kind of person who likes streaks, checklists, stats, use that. Utilize that. There's a reason why so many things that are sort of difficult to do or unpleasant in our lives have been gamified. Stuff like Peloton did a really good job of this over the pandemic. They convinced people to do things by making it like a game, giving you points, giving you streaks, giving you badges. And there are plenty of apps that allow you to gamify your reading experience, including tracking your pages read, setting daily goals, setting streaks, logging finished books, and sort of getting recommendations on those finished books. But it sounds silly, but turning reading into a sort of gamified action can be extremely effective. It helps to build that habit, and it helps to build momentum in your reading. So once you've read a little bit every day for 2 weeks, you don't want to break that chain. You want to keep that streak going. I know the Kindle app on Amazon, I have a Kindle myself. It tracks every day that I've read. And if I have like a 30-day streak going, I'm aware of that. I want to keep that going as long as I possibly can and use that to your advantage to gamify the experience. There is a reason, again, that why these gamification systems really work, because they keep users engaged. And if you can use one of those systems to keep you engaged with the process of reading over the next year, I think you'll be amazed with how much you get done in that time. Let's talk about number 4. Always have a backlog. Nothing kills a reading habit faster than finishing a book and not knowing what you're going to read next. This one is as easy to form as anything I've talked about here. So what you need to do is always have a backlog. You need to be going to the library, going to the bookstore, looking up potential recommendations online. Always be looking out and scouring for what your next book might be. Because if you're somebody who is just in the midst of a book and like, yeah, I'm kind of finishing this, I don't really need to look for what I'm reading next, you need to actually keep an eye on what your backlog will be. You can have a notes app, you can make a wish list on Amazon or at Barnes & Noble or an independent bookseller kind of situation, but just make sure that you're aware of whatever your next read is going to be. Set yourself up for success. Eventually you may get to the point where your backlog is so vast that you don't even necessarily need to know what your next read is going to be, but it's going to be one of these books that you've picked out over the course of time. But be intentional in terms of being around books. Don't just wait until you finish a book to start looking for one, because it can be so easy to be like, you know, I couldn't find something that day that really tickled my fancy, and so I'm just not going to read for now. You need to always have a backlog that you're building upon over the course of time. And the way that you do that is by making a trip to the bookstore, maybe where you don't even buy a book. You just look around and say, you know, I'm going to come back for this one. I'm going to circle back when I'm done with my book and really come for this. Go to the library, see what they have, see what people are recommending, what are sort of showcased at those libraries. Libraries do an excellent job of showcasing new releases, showcasing older books that some of the librarians may have had great experiences with, and they're an invaluable tool that you should rely upon to the best of your ability. The point of this whole backlog process is to prevent another friction point in reading more books. You want to eliminate friction in reading. You want to establish a backlog so that there is not any sort of barrier between yourself and continuing to read. And we do that by, again, being intentional with our time, again, being intentional in putting ourselves in a position to have the opportunity to read by always having one available to us, and also by always having a backlog of books that we can build upon. Okay, so my final tip on this list is also a big one. It's going to be intentional about the books you're choosing for your backlog. If you want to read more books, it stands to reason that it may be difficult to do so if you're tackling 1,000-page behemoths back to back to back. So think about and be intentional with the books that you're choosing and selecting. Because if you're somebody who likes to just dive into a quick beach read, then maybe this isn't necessarily a problem for you. Maybe you're intimidated by larger books. But if you're somebody who's like, you know, I've always wanted to read Stephen King's It, and that is a 1,000-page plus book, maybe think about, after reading that book, because I think it's well worth the read, taking something a little bit lighter, building in your backlog or choosing something from your backlog that is, you know, a 300-page lighter read, because it can just very much be something that bogs people down, where they're stuck on the same book for a longer period of time, and that's not going to be helpful in reading more books over the course of the year. So you want to be intentional in the books that you're choosing, between fiction, nonfiction, easy reads and challenging ones. You don't have to necessarily feel that you have to tackle all the classics at once. I personally, if I'm tackling a classic, I always like to sort of cleanse myself with some trashy read of some kind after I do that. And that's allowed me to have sort of a broad range of tastes and expose myself to a lot of different forms of fiction, of nonfiction, which I've really come to enjoy. So be intentional, again, with what you're choosing to put on your list, what you're choosing to read in terms of long books, short books, nonfiction, fiction, because otherwise you may get bogged down in a situation where you're not necessarily enjoying what you're reading. Reading more isn't about becoming a different person. It's not about changing yourself necessarily. It's about removing the friction points and making not reading harder than reading, or not making reading super hard for yourself. So build the habit, remove those points of friction, and set yourself up for success. Do that, and the books will take care of themselves, and you'll find yourself reading more than you maybe ever thought possible. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more book recommendations, reading tips. Until later, I will talk to you guys soon. Bye now.